I know there are some folks who are trying to make some plane and train connections, so I want to try to see if we can bring closure as soon as possible. For those of you who are the diehards, there is a reception. You will be rewarded. We can't buy you a drink, but we can give you some chicken wings and stuff like that to fill you up before you head out the door. I would buy you a drink, but Fran knows we can't. And since our two program officers are sitting here, I know I'll say we cannot use federal funds to do that kind of stuff. But anyway, I said early on it was going to be a jam-packed day. I meant it, and I want to thank all of you for staying with us and providing some really good contributions. We're going to take a few minutes to do a quick summary of what the implications that came out of each of the 4 discussions this afternoon, and then Fran's going to give us a few closing remarks, and I'm going to talk very briefly about some next steps that we're contemplating. Throughout this process, I want to, and by the way, I'll also say a few thank yous then, but I also want to encourage those that haven't filled out your evaluation form, please do so. So let's go ahead and talk very quickly about the summaries of the breakout 2 discussions. Starting first with session number 1, the Midwest folks. Do we have a designated reporter?
Hi, everyone. I'm Jenny with the National High School Center. By default, I became the nominee. My wait time thing didn't work. So we had a lot of good conversations, and we kind of coalesced around 3 broad ideas in terms of implications for technical assistance that we thought would be particularly helpful. The first was to build off of the existing map that is created in terms of all of the different federally funded centers, but to have it focused on college and career readiness work, but to then include entry-level points of where people could get entry points of where the audiences of different groups and who they're working with, what their capacity is, as well as processes and tools that are specific to college and career readiness. So to have a map, but with the college and career readiness spin on it, and to include the national organizations that are also involved and include that into the map as well. We spent a fair amount of time as well talking about how we have all experienced leadership transitions and what that does in terms of technical assistance work, and the importance of making sure that we're able to encourage people to bring others in terms of, we know that stakeholder involvement is important, but this was one of the things that the group really talked about in terms of a way of overcoming that transition disruptions that can occur, and as a way of sustaining the vision and getting buy-in and building capacity as well. So it was a great way of taking care of some of the challenges that we were seeing, and a benefit as well, all rolled up into one implication with the semicolon thrown in there. And then we also talked about how for technical assistance providers, we want to make sure that we create opportunities to build our own capacity around college and career readiness. There's a lot going on. If you look at the graphic organizer, there's a lot of different things going on. But then how do we make sure, if we want to almost practice what we're encouraging our states and our districts to do in terms of building our own capacity, so that we can make sure that we're providing the best services as well to others. Thank you.
So group 2, the session 2, the East folks.
Thank you. I'll stand in the same spot so I don't have my back toward anyone. Just like Jenny, I was the lucky nominee. And I just want to say, first of all, I'm Sarah Sako, and I'm here representing the New York Comprehensive Center and the Center on Instruction. Our group, and please jump in, anyone from my group, if I misrepresent, we really discussed 3, I think, main topics in our discussion, and they all complement each other nicely, I think. The first one is the idea as TA providers of building capacity rather than being the capacity in SEAs and working with states, and in this critical time where SEAs, LEAs, and fiscal and human resources are diminished, I think more than ever we have to think about what capacity means and our role within it. Second is the TA provider being what we called the institutional memory. And what we mean by that is we were talking a lot about how people come and go, and sometimes when people come and go, so goes the initiative and the will and drive and motivation to continue. And so sometimes as TA providers, even though you don't want to be the capacity necessarily, sometimes you're the holder of the institutional memory of how the SEA got to where they are and what their goals are and where they need to go. And that can be a powerful place at times. And finally, this idea, I guess metaphor of being the mirror, and we talked a lot about having the SEA, it's like holding a mirror to yourself and looking at and remembering as the institution why you started on this journey and keeping that goal in mind. And we discussed a lot about, oh gosh, I'm so sorry, Arizona and your TA support right next to you here, Sheila, right? It took me a while. I was staring at her and thinking, I know that name. How Sheila had for the Comprehensive Center created that map for your own Comprehensive Center of where each state has, where you've gone in your support, but it being equally as important as a state to sort of map it out in that same way and look at where you've gone. So those are the 3 areas that we really discussed in our group.
Thank you. How about the West group? I think Kit. Great to see you again, Kit.
Is it on? Oh, it is. Kit Picciotto from Northwest Regional Comprehensive Center, representing the West. We had 3 implications that we decided were ones that we wanted to report out. The first one was around the need for perhaps a definition of college and career readiness that spoke to our region. And in our region of the West, there are a number of contexts that are very rural and remote. So we had some discussion around what does college and career readiness mean, for example, for Jerry's villages in Alaska or in the Pacific Islands, some of the entities that are there. So that was one implication that we wanted to talk about, a cultural and contextual definition of college and career readiness. The second implication that came up in our group was around the issue of collaboration and how can we ensure collaboration of TA providers who have similar clients. So for those of us that are federally funded TA providers, the RELs, the comprehensive centers, the regional resource centers that are funded by OSEP, the content centers, how can we ensure collaboration among ourselves for TA that we're providing to the same entity? And in many cases, that's the state educational agencies. So we talked about some ideas that came out were some formal agreements where you actually lay out in writing what is the collaboration that's going to take place. We said that had to be goal-driven, and goal-driven from the perspective of the client, whoever the common client is. So not what we thought necessarily had to happen, but what the client said they needed. We also, within this kind of implication, we talked about the need to ensure that the TA is inclusive, that we're paying attention to all students with disabilities, students perhaps who are English language learners, and then we also, I at least lumped this under, I hope my group doesn't mind, I lumped them under the implication here about collaboration, where we talked about our role of TA providers is both a pushing and a listening role. Sometimes our role is to listen, and other times it is to be proactive and kind of push our clients in a way. The final implication, I think, relates to the one I just spoke about, the collaboration, and that's the opportunities. And actually, now that I think about it, relates to the first one too. The opportunity for us to leverage through technology. So in a region like the West, and I know many other states have the same issue, where there are great distances and you're trying to foster both TA work and collaboration, that technology provides some opportunities for that. Some ideas that came up were interactive hubs, as I believe the term that someone used, where resources can be posted and can be mined. The notion of both asynchronous and synchronous technological opportunities, and the idea of both self-forming and self-managing groups that might come together through technology, do the work that they need to do, and then disband. So is there anything else from my group in the West?
Great, thanks. Now, I know the South was doing some important work because I went to visit their room and the door was locked. So I'm interested to hear what the South was up to.
Well, you won't be surprised to learn that I was the facilitator then. Reporting out last has the advantage of that most of the points have already been discussed. So I won't repeat a whole lot, but just highlight some of the ideas that we would like to bring forward. We discussed a lot of things, but we identified 3 that we thought were overarching. And the first one was really about definitions and the agreement that we need to not only have definitions, but it's okay that we have several definitions, and that as long as that they're aligned and they're all working towards the students' best outcomes, that's fine, that we're going to come in it with different goals and different perspectives depending upon funding, depending upon organization or system, and that those aligned definitions, if worked all together, will best meet the needs of kids. So our second one is coordination, ensuring that services provided, technical assistance provided to states, district schools are all very well coordinated so that the recipient isn't having to weigh or be able to figure out, or the technical assistance provision, that they will be receiving these coordinated services. And then the third is to really develop a deeper understanding of resources and tools. And a lot of the people in our group really, I think, came with a lot of knowledge, but also became aware through today's meeting that there's so much more out there, and wanting to continue to gain and become lifelong learners, as one of our organizations talks about. And so continuing to learn more and more about not only what is career and college readiness, but what are those resources and available resources. So coordination, really not only horizontally and vertically, definitions that are aligned, if not uniform, and a deeper understanding would be our 3 points.
Thanks. So now we got Fran's going to give a few closing remarks, and then we'll talk very briefly about next steps.
I took you at your word. You need to go fast.
Appreciate it.
Hello, everyone. I do have only a few remarks to make, and it's always fun to be the one who gets to talk last. I get to say all the things that I didn't hear anyone else say. But I am going to repeat a few things that I heard, and I don't think you'll be surprised at what they are. I do want to start out, though, by thanking Joe and the High School Center staff, and especially the High School Center staff.
My secret is out.
I've hung around with them long enough to know who conceptualizes the work and who does the work. But I do want to make a couple remarks. And again, I apologize to those of you who are TA providers and college and career ready experts who are in the audience, because my remarks almost always focus on the Comp Center network. But I think I do that because it's such an impressive model to me of technical assistance and how technical assistance is supposed to work. And this might be kind of a random list of 5 things, but to me it makes a lot of sense. First of all, the fact that this was a symposium, one day, one intense day, and not a gig, not a 3-day circus. Not that 3-day circuses aren't fun, and even good learning opportunities, but that whole notion that the comp centers, the content centers have really moved from, let's have a big annual meeting and talk about a lot of different stuff, and everybody goes, that was great, and then they go home. And the evolution that those of you who have been with the centers over the 7 years now have seen of this, people need time to talk to each other, and they need time to struggle with these difficult and challenging ideas. So I really, thumbs up to Joe for finally paying attention to me after 6 years. I love to give it
Temporarily.
Temporarily, right. But the other thing I want to point out is that this is exactly what the Comprehensive Centers Network is supposed to do. We have content centers who maybe don't even know the specialized knowledge, but have access to people like David Conley, who do know something about it. They also have their own, experts on staff, but one of the real conceptions of the content centers was that they would be the point people on bringing the expertise to the regional centers and the SEAs and putting them in situations where they could have this rigorous thinking going on and they would be able to participate in it. And I always tell the Comp Center directors when we meet that when that design was put into place in 2005, nobody knew if it would work. And so the fact that it worked is the result of you all making it work. And it's been wonderful to see the evolution where that notion that you all are good TA providers and you have a lot of expertise, but you probably don't have expertise in something as complex as this. And so let's put you with people who do know something and you can learn from them. And I think that today's meeting was a really great example of that. A couple people have mentioned the notion of regional people and content centers building their own capacity. And I think that's something that's really an important point and really okay. I think there was a time in the Comp Center, this what we call the performance period since 2005, when it wasn't okay for regional centers to say we don't know that, because they were all kind of yeah we can take care of that, we know it, and content centers doing the same thing. And so the fact that you've gotten to a place where you're willing and able to say we really need to get better at this, it's a complex topic, is just a really good sign. And then in the turn back, the regional centers, of course, and I think you know this, really were designed and are doing the informing of the thinking of the high school center, the teacher quality center, the center on instruction. It really is supposed to be a two-way street because the regional people are the ones on the ground, as you heard today at the panel, really talking with the states and really understanding what's going on. So I really like the fact that this is going two ways, and it's supposed to be. The other job of both regional and content centers is never to provide the answers. It was to provide the questions. Ask the good questions. That's the job of the regional center. Ask the good questions of the field. That's the job of the content center. And so again, I think the fact that Joe made the point this morning that the organizer is not a framework, it's not a checklist, it's not a list of if you do all these things, college and career readiness will happen, but really intending to be a thought provoker and getting the questions out there is just really huge. And then the last thing I just wanted to talk about is just some of the things I heard today about good TA provision. And again, this is where I'm going to sort of repeat some of the things you said. That whole notion that your job is to build relationships, I can't tell you how many times I've heard that, and it's always true. I mean, it's worth saying over and over again. The notion that's also evolved over time of regional work, because so many individual states are struggling with issues, and somehow we've learned that the synergy of bringing states together in a regional meeting is really valuable, and that came out again today. Cheryl mentioned that she's known for her patience and her persistence, and I love that. I think it really is all of the people who've worked in the centers understand that you can't say it once or twice or three times. Maybe we're talking more 10, 15, 20, 25 times. You just keep looping back and bringing it up if it's important, and I think that's great. In the breakout session I was in this afternoon, Joanne Cashman talked about collaboration, and everybody does talk about collaboration. But her key question was, who cares about this topic and why? Instead of saying, I should collaborate with a REL, I should collaborate with the Regional Research Center. I thought her framing question really opened it up to collaborating with lots of non-federally funded TA providers as well. Who cares about this topic and why? And then finally, the thing that I think became very clear today, again, when you're faced with this complex topics, is the job of the TA provider to translate a complex topic into something, not for people who can't understand complex topics, but who are under this, as a lot of people said this afternoon, states are under this tremendous pressure, most of it caused by the Department of Education, I might point out, but this tremendous pressure to get stuff done. Do this, apply for flexibility, do this, do your SIG, do this, do that, do that. Not to mention the political and leadership context in their own homes. And so I think that as TA providers, the degree that you can help not oversimplify, but begin to, again, show the connections. Don't present this as new work, but how is it connected to the old work, and really move people forward in that way. And it's so easy to talk about that, and the last thing I want to say is I understand, I think, that it's so hard to do. I've really learned from you. I say this every time. I'm in total admiration of the work you do and the unbelievable energy at the end of year 7 that you still bring to it. So thank you from me and the department. Thanks, Joe.
And thank you, Fran, for your support. And I also want to do a shout out to Corrine Weidenthal in the back of the room, who's our OSEP program officer, for her support for the high school center. So our hope is, I'll do that old corny thing. It's commencement. It's a beginning, not the end, because everybody's doing that this next couple of weeks at graduation ceremonies everywhere. But we really do hope this is a commencement of some other activities that we'd like to do over the next few months. And so I want to very quickly share a couple of those proposed next steps. First of all, we're very proud of the packet of stuff that we gave you, put together. A lot of staff work went into that, but I hope to say we're priming the pump. This is the tip of the iceberg. We have several other publications coming out within the next month, including one around looking at English language learners and the Common Core, students with disabilities in the Common Core, and students with disabilities around college and career readiness. They'll all be available on our website. We're looking at the possibility, or we've pretty much put in place, and as part of that, let me invite, we sent some communications. I think they came from Laura, or they were to go back to Laura, your heart, asking you if you have things you want us to post on your behalf to make available to a broader community. We'd be glad to do that. So that offer's still on. Everything from the meeting, including all the PowerPoints, and within a few days, as soon as we can turn them around, the videos and everything else, and not immediately, but a summary of the implications that came out of the last session as well. All of that will be posted as well on the Symposium website. We're looking at and have tentatively scheduled 4 webinars. The kickoff will be an extended version of David's presentation on the complexity of college and career readiness. This is one where we'd be happy if you invited some of your TA consumers as well. So that will be a broader. We're looking at, okay, let's create a longer version that's for a broader group of folks that might be interested. So we've got that date reserved on David's calendar. We're good to go on that. Brad is going to do a presentation on the ConnectEd's linked learning approach. I think we're tentative because we want to have some practitioners, and we don't have a confirmation yet on that, but we have a confirmation on Brad. And then likewise, Betsy Brand is going to do a presentation along with Lou Danielson from the High School Center on college and career readiness and students with disabilities, and implications for students with disabilities. And we're leaving the 4th one open. We've got the time slotted, and the reason we're leaving it open is because we want you to fill out the form that identifies some of the things you'd be interested in, and we'll schedule the fourth Tuesday event based on the feedback we get from you. You can also just send us emails and stuff like that. We're also going to try to open the school year last couple of weeks around the last week of August, first couple of weeks in September, with a few more webinars that are follow-up to some other publications that we have underway at the early stages with the folks from the EPIC Center and from AYPF and some of our other consultants as well. I think Quill Research is out there, Becky is out there, and Cersei and the West Wind folks. So we're working on some other publications, and we'll have some fall webinars. We'll take the month of July off, basically, for vacation. And then we have the ability to set up a space for us to continue conversations if there's an interest. We have the existing technology in place. We literally could flip a switch on it pretty much overnight as soon as we're ready. That's another reason we need to hear from you about what your level of interest is. If you want us to create a forum where folks can post questions, share successes and have threaded discussions and other types of activities for the TA providers, we'd be glad to do that. So that's it. I want to stop by just asking high school center folks to raise their hands. We couldn't have done this without them. And the last but not least, I want to, we had like a core work team, and we also have an ongoing a college and career readiness work group. I want to first thank the work group folks that Helen leads. Raise your hands. I know Patrice and others. And then I want to give a special shout out to Megan Lebo, Helen Duffy, Becky Smurden, Jennifer Lerner, Chad Duhan, Jenny Scala, who have been kind of the weekly team getting together to talk about the variations. And I'll tell you, I will, a lesson learned is no matter what, it is easier, convenient to do a one-day meeting. But I tell you, it takes as much time to plan for a one-day meeting as it does for a 3-day gala. And I never thought that would happen, and I kept saying to everybody, don't worry about it, we can do this in our sleep. We do big meetings all the time. Well, I've been sweating bullets for a couple weeks now, and staff have been bringing everything together, and I've been saying, are we going to get there? Are we going to get there? And they assured me that we would, and we did. And the most important thing is we had a really reaching out to you and having a really good group of folks who are willing to come and share and discuss and help us crack this challenge. Final thanks to David and the folks from EPIC. And again, thanks to all of you for making this a worthwhile activity. For those that are up for it, there's more food I think it's in the bar area, just directly of the lounge area. We have a special area set up for us. Drinks are on you. And whatever you work out with the bartender is your deal. Good luck. I know I'm going to have a personal relationship with him right now. Thanks so much, and we'll see you soon. Take care.